Welcome to this week's edition of Good Books Radio. Audiobooks.com is the chief underwriter for Good Books Radio, which is produced by UTRGV Media Services for Rio Grande Valley Public Radio. And now, here's your host, Dr. W.F. Strong.
Welcome to another edition of Good Books Radio. I'm sitting in today for Dr. John Cook, who is, as they like to say, on assignment, which I think in his case is sitting on a beach in Mexico having margaritas. At least I hope so. Salud, Cook. We have today the book called Love-Based Copywriting, Love-Based Copywriting System and Love-Based Copywriting Method. Sounds like an unusual title, right? But let's just look at what it is, and here I have this little introduction from the book itself. It says, do you hate the way sales and marketing copy make you feel? Salesy, inauthentic, hypey, just plain, well, icky. You're not alone. And there's a reason you feel that way. It's because traditional sales and marketing copy, also known as direct response copy, sells by tapping into fear. But you don't have to use fear to write well. You can sell and market your business using love instead. And when you do that, you stop manipulating and twisting arms to get buyers, and instead you start attracting, inspiring, inviting your ideal clients into your business. Now, all of us really do some copywriting sometime in our lives. I mean, a resume, a cover letter, this is copywriting for you, self-marketing. And anybody who has a business has dabbled in copywriting, putting together your own ads, etc. So these books might be useful to you if you're anywhere near the world of advertising and self-promotion. Michele PW is the author of this. PW is her initials, but she prefers to use them, another kind of marketing technique. Michele PW is considered one of the hottest marketing and copyright strategists today. She is founder and owner of a copywriting and marketing company that specializes in helping entrepreneurs and business owners all over the world grow successful and profitable businesses through good copywriting and good marketing. We're going to talk to her now. She's on the phone. One of the things that I noticed, one of the reasons I was attracted to your book was love in the title. I thought, well, yeah, that's fascinating. A love-based copywriting method or love-based copywriting system. You know, the two books, Volume 1 and 2. So let's begin there. Why this title, and how did you come upon it?
Well, what really happened is, I have to back it up a little bit, is that I'm a copywriter, so right, which is a traditional, you write, what it is nothing to do with protecting intellectual property. It has everything to do with writing promotional materials for businesses. And I was specializing on the internet. I'd learned a lot of, I'd learned from all the traditional masters on copywriting. But there was this core group of like conscious entrepreneurs, healers, coaches that were kind of rising up, like in the 2010 type, 2011, and they really didn't like the traditional direct response copy. They thought it sounded like inauthentic and salesy and hypey, and they didn't want to use it. And at that time, people were saying, well, pull on your big girl panties and use it, or don't be successful. There were some harsh lessons back then. But so, and then people said to me, Michele, can you come up with a new way of writing copy? And I said, absolutely not. And it wasn't until, because there's plenty of good copywriting. I have no business writing copy. But then in 2014, my friend came out with this book, Love-Based Marketing, and I looked at it and I thought, love-based copywriting, what would be the opposite? That would be fear-based copy. And the entire philosophy just went boom and downloaded into me. And hence, that's how I got the two books first.
Mm-hmm. Well, what did you, let's back it up even further to look at your own personal history a little bit. Your educational background is what? Your major in college was what?
My major in college? English and communications. But what's interesting is I actually had I was almost a sociology major, and then I decided to triple major. I was kind of crazy, but the sociology is what's helped me the most, quite honestly, because that's the study of human behavior. And so actually, that's been what I've drawn upon more than either the English or the communication.
And then you went to work in the field of copywriting fairly quickly?
So actually, when I was this really starts when I was 3 years old, and I taught myself to read because I wanted to write stories so badly. So I've been driven to write my entire life, and then when I was in high school, I was casting around for something else to write or to do to make money while I wrote books. Novels specifically, and people said to me, "Why don't you become a journalist?" And I said, "That's the last thing I want to be." So it was when I was in college, that's when I kind of discovered this whole wacky world of copywriting. And yeah, so I did, after college, I kind of went into it as a freelancer, plus I got some jobs in marketing agencies, a corporate job in communications, that kind of thing.
So you were in Mad Men.
I was a what?
So you were like in the show Mad Men. You were writing.
Oh yes, I was
in
Mad Men. Yes, that's exactly it. Yes.
And did you spend a lot of time editing and revising and pleasing clients in that sort of setup?
Yeah, so I wasn't a terribly good employee. So
Why?
Well, because I think part of it was the this idea that I'm very entrepreneurial.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just having a boss and somebody else to answer to just never really completely set right with me, because I of course could always do it better. So. 1998, I finally decided that I was going to make this freelance thing work. So I quit. At that time, I was working for the government. So I really went. I was working in government communications. So I really went the other way, and I quit and I started freelancing. As a freelance copywriter, and I did that full time. I've continued to do it, but what I did was in 2004, 2005, I started to build an actual copywriting company. So that's kind of, and where I have like a team of copywriters and project managers and the whole bit.
Well, what makes for a good copywriter in a professional sense? If you were going to hire someone, what would you look for in them in terms of personal history or just writing style? What would you look for?
So a couple of things, and that's a great question. Sales is actually really good. If I can find somebody who doesn't mind sales, because sales and copywriting are very similar. And if somebody is comfortable in sales, they're probably going to be comfortable as a copywriter. Also, somebody who is they can match a variety of styles, because one of the things that happens when you're a freelance copywriter, and not every client, but many clients want the copywriters to sound just like them. So they want somebody that can imitate their voice. So if I have a writer who's got is too strong of a style, or who can't imitate other voices, that's not going to work very well. So if you've got a flexibility there, that's a lot better.
So you want someone obviously that's flexible, but a lot of those clients, they want essentially a ghostwriter.
Yeah, a ghostwriter, but we are actually ghostwriters, but it's not like in the traditional sense writing a book. Instead, you're writing sales copy, so it's a sell thing. So, but yeah, we are actually ghostwriters. So in a lot of ways, and they do, especially the market that I serve, because a lot of these people with the love, the conscious entrepreneurs, they're very, very much want their voice out there. So they are very sensitive to this. Not everybody is like that. Some clients don't really care, but a lot of them do. So it really helps to be able to just really get into their voice and be able to imitate it.
The word that I see a lot here in your book is authenticity.
Yes. People want, and integrity, And maybe that's part of why they're so attracted to having someone sound like them, because then it feels more authentic to them.
Sure. Yes. Can you give us examples of, before you wrote this book and your life as a copywriter, what sort of companies did you work with?
So I've really worked with a lot of people in the gamut. Like I did some work with Whole Foods, with Avnet Computer. They're a big technology company. And then a lot of smaller companies too, especially in this kind of the coaching industry. There's this whole, like, the internet has spawned all these kind of different industries, and the industry that I'm in, is kind of like this online coaching, healers, spiritual entrepreneurs, that kind of bit. So those Brian Tracy's another one too. That one. So I did a lot of work for him as well. And so that's where a lot of my clients in the last 5-10 years has really come from.
So you have to create, obviously, for that market. Authenticity is clearly, absolutely important. It's paramount that you have interpersonal warmth in your style, so that you can reach out and connect deeply with people. But how do you do that? What are your rules?
So first off, you have to really know who you're talking to, and writing to one person. So you don't want to write to a group, but one person, one specific person. And the more specific you can really make them, I know and that's the thing. This is one of those things. This is one of those pieces of advice that just sounds counterintuitive. It's like it feels like, if I'm writing to one specific person and that person isn't me, then why would the copy sound like it's written to me? But it does, because you make it, you're being specific in the details, and the details is what really draws in the connection. So so the first thing to do is to really help the clients get clear on who their ideal clients are. Now, some clients know this, but a lot of them don't. Or they've got kind of this vague, hazy sense of like this kind of over big size demographic. So narrowing it down as much as possible to an ideal client group, and I like ideal clients because I like the problem. Like another word that's thrown around a lot is niche. And the problem with niche marketing is, again, niche sounds like a group. Ideal client is a person. So the more we can really picture a person at the other end of what we're writing, and then I think that just makes everything better for everybody, because then you're not writing to like a mass. You're not thinking of your clients as walking wallets. And if you can really feel like who they are, what's keeping them up at night, what are their goals, their dreams, their core values, the more you can really feel like you know that, the more you can write it, and the more authentic it becomes.
Do you have an example that you can share with us of a good example of connecting well?
So one of the things is like I'm trying to think of a piece of copy, but think of it as like kind of like almost like a love letter, I would say. So if you're writing like a love letter to your client, if you want to do this yourself, and in terms of the thing is it's interesting. That's an interesting question, because I think everybody would find the copy connection differently. Because for somebody who, if you're the ideal client and you're reading it, and it's done correctly, you will feel connected to it. But somebody else who's not an ideal client actually won't be connected to it. So that's the thing. It's not something that kind of works over all groups. If you do it right, you're going to repel as much as you attract.
Oh yeah, I think of your example of writing the love letter, because if you're in love, it's a beautiful thing. But if you're not, it's something that makes people want to gag. Say, oh my God, that is so bad. It's responsible for a lot of bad poetry in the world, love. But meant a lot to the person who got it, at the time. As I was reading your book and your examples, I thought, well, this isn't something that's only for people who are, in business. Everybody at some point in their life is writing copy.
Yeah, and I love how you say that, because I've actually wanted to expand this more into actually love-based persuasion. I feel like that's what this is really more about. And because as human beings, we live in communities, and persuasion is part of how we communicate. And it's not just like persuading somebody to do something that they don't want to do, or to buy a product. You're also persuading your kids to go to bed at a decent bedtime. Now, on the other hand, you could say I guess you are persuading them to do something they don't want to do, but you want them to do it. But But it's this idea that you can persuade. Now, in order to persuade somebody, you have to tap into people's emotions. If you want somebody to take action, you must tap into their emotions. And you have a choice. You can tap into what I call love-based emotions, which are, love and, connection, joy, happiness, all of that. Or you can tap into fear-based emotions, which is fear, anxiety, anger, grief, though grief doesn't persuade very well, shame, guilt. All of that is under fear-based emotions. And you have a choice. You can, depending on how you choose, is what you're going to do. And so one of the things that I really like the idea of spreading the word out there is how we can really persuade, or sell more, persuade more with love versus using fear.
Well, fear works well in persuasion, but only short term. There's a classic study you remind me of done years ago when they were trying to determine whether children responded better in dental care to the fear of dental disease or just the reward of having nice teeth. And they found that they showed these kids, these horrific films of people with, black gums and gingivitis in advanced form, and teeth falling out. And then they showed people with really white teeth and, being loved for their white teeth. And they found that short term, the horrible films of people with teeth falling out was effective in getting kids to brush their teeth. But after about 3 days, it reversed, and they just said, "Oh my God, that's so horrible! There's nothing I can do." and so they responded more over time to authority and positive reinforcement of white teeth.
Exactly, and that's the thing, because the fear, especially that, it went so overboard too. I mean, because those images, I know exactly the study you're talking about. But our brains are designed to shut things off. So we're designed to actually shut off fear over time and not remember the fear. So, and nobody wants to tap into fear. I mean, think about it. When you want to buy a product or a service or whatever it is, you want the transformation. You want the hope. I mean, even if it's a pair of shoes, you're buying, something that's joyful, that excites you. Hopefully, maybe sometimes you're buying shoes because you don't want to. But,
it's an expensive kind of hope sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah. So so why people really buy really is on the love-based side, and so that's why a lot of sales copy and a lot of persuasion and a lot of sales techniques feels really icky to people because they mix in the fear, they mix in the shame. Shame's a huge one that is used a lot, and they mix it in with the love-based emotions, and then it just all feels really icky. So that's why. But if you kind of leave the fear-based emotions out and just focus on the love, you can totally do it. You can totally make money doing it, and it can be more effective over time, and it can build your brand better as well.
Well, let's suppose that I were coming to you as the director-producer of Good Books Radio, and I was saying, okay, we need to write some really good copy to produce some internet-based ads so that we can obviously increase our listenership. So how would you begin with me as your client? What would you need to do to begin that work?
So first we would talk about your ideal clients, and so we'd be or in your case, your ideal listeners, and get very deeply into why are they listening? What's keeping them up at night that they're the problem that they're having that listening to the show will solve. And then once we've got that connection, your offer, your message, then it's a matter of kind of figuring out some interesting ways to test and tweak for that internet marketing, like based on where you're going to do it and the kind of the standards. Like right now, Facebook ads. I do know sometimes these really long story-like ads work, and then sometimes they're short. So, that's the other problem with the internet. Things change so fast constantly. But knowing that key message, and then being able to then take it and put something around it. I mean, stories usually sell. So so sometimes you can do a campaign around that, but that's what you do is we kind of start with the basics and the foundation, and then come up with a few ideas to test and tweak to see which works better.
Do you like your copy to be, at least from the book I am guessing from what I see that you've written is you like kind of short and tight for the most part, right?
Yes, and conversational. Yeah, so that's precisely what I that's where I like to go, because I also think conversational, drawing people in using strong verbs is really good versus a lot of adjectives. Yes, that's the kind of writing that seems to work the best.
What is bad when you run across in a magazine and you're reading copy and you go, oh my God, what makes you say that? What is generally the problem? 2 or 3 things that you see that, oh, that's terrible.
Oh, usually it's in a lot of cases it's adjectives. Like I'm thinking, so they use too many adjectives, or they're using really mushy, what I call mushy words. Like I really like words, and I think the most effective are ones that really can paint a picture in your head. I mean, that's really what we're supposed to be doing. And strong verbs is a great way to do that. If you start using too big words, that don't put a picture in, or kind of like mushy ways of explaining it, then nobody knows it doesn't connect, because it's so broad. And I think and a lot of times for these I'm thinking of a lot of entrepreneurs who do stuff like that, and part of it is fear on their part, because they don't want to, they're afraid of being so specific and really drilling down and getting their ideal client, because and it's fear, because it's like, well, but I can help all these other people, and I want their money, which is totally understandable, by the way, and totally human, and there's no judgment. But the reality is that the broader you try to make it and the mushier it gets, it's not going to really appeal to anybody. So it's really, you're really doing everybody a disservice when you do that, even though I know it can feel very, very scary to really hone it down and put those specific verbs out there, strong images that really connect with your ideal client.
You have 2 books. You have Volume 1, which is Love-Based Copywriting Method, and then Volume 2, Love-Based Copywriting System. What's the difference?
So the method, why I wrote 2 was I knew, like I was thinking of my own industry, and there's a lot of people that actually understand a lot of the basics of writing copy. So I didn't think they would read a book that talked about like how to write headlines, how to write features and benefits, but they would want to know the love-based philosophy. So the love-based copy method is really more about the philosophy, and it's about the sales triggers, that kind of thing. It's more of a high-end view of how you can really take take fear-based stuff out there, like how we may have learned through selling through fear, or persuading through fear, and change it to love. So that's also a really good book if you just are interested in the philosophy and the method. The love-based copy method is the right one, and the system is like that really just drills down into step by step, really walking you through all the how to write copy. So that goes through the headlines and features and benefits and all of that.
Well, I still want you to give us an example of really good copywriting. One case of, even if it's not yours, a historical case here is a beautiful classic example of good copywriting. Isn't it true that a lot of copywriters, some of the best ever were people who were also very literary?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, I think the best copywriters are, even though you can have very effective copy and not be a great writer, mm-hmm. the best copywriters are great writers and have a really strong sense of persuasion. So, mm-hmm. I will give you an example because this is is Gary Halbert. He is a famous copywriter, and one of the things that he has, this is like a guarantee. So this is like one piece that he had, but it's kind of like cited, and it's sold an awful lot of face cream. And what it was if you get to the bottom of the jar, and you get to the bottom of the jar, and you are and your friends are not accusing you of having a facelift, send the empty jar back, and we'll give you your money back.
That's good. Yeah,
yes,
that's good.
Very a lot good. Of face cream.
Yes. Well, I remember reading once. Now, I don't know this necessarily, the aesthetics of how the words are put together, but it's a good technique. And I didn't realize the power of it till I read this article about in Parade magazine when they used to do the ads for the copy, rather, for Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes. And they would have people, people would order magazines, but they would also get entered into this sweepstakes to win $1 million, right? And one of the things they discovered somewhere, one of their copywriters produced it, was that they would put a little secret. They'd say, here's a secret for you. And it would be like in a little treasure chest off to the side. Put this number, in your magazine order, and you will get 30% off or something like that. And they found that just people knowing what they thought was a secret, that they would participate more.
Yes, that's true. People like that, secret or overhearing something. So listen in. That's always good too. Like listen in, or anything like that. Any kind of exclusivity, it can work really well. That's very true.
And I remember reading that, and it kind of shocked me. I said, "Oh, so it's not the 30%; it's the secret."
It's the secret. I know.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Well, and they also think, because it's not only it's a secret and it's a treasure chest, but it's also the idea of it is that it's a special. It's something that nobody else knows.
That's right.
So that's that exclusivity piece of it.
Even though it's there, even though it's published in mass millions of times, I feel like yeah, secrets are useful. We have just about 3 minutes left, so I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about anything that you feel we haven't covered sufficiently.
So one of the things that I can just briefly talk about is, because when I talked about keeping people up at night, when we talk about love-based, I do feel like talking about, I do feel like that we need to address that. So love-based is not so much like doing like a spiritual bypass and not talking about the bad things, because the bad things are real. And your ideal clients are truly in pain right now. So to address that in a nice, in a respectful manner, I think is really, really powerful. So that's one of the things that I just want to just kind of put leave for everybody, is that it's not, when you're love-based, that's not a sign that you only talk about good things.
Right.
What it is it's about you're educating, and you are and you're looking. It's like you're accepting everything. So the gamut of life, and so that's really what it's more about.
And then you're simultaneously, for those clients, validating that their feelings are real, and that they're not alone in that.
Exactly, because there's nothing worse than like if you were, if you go to a doctor and the doctor says, I can't find anything wrong, it must be all in your head. I mean, you don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, addressing them and addressing what it is in a sympathetic, respectfully acknowledging it is so powerful.
You have a website, www.michelepw.com.
Yep.
And so we can learn more about these books and your and the ways that we could hire you as a consultant, for instance, I imagine, right?
Yep, that's all there.
Okay.
Well, very good. Thank you so much for joining us today on Good Books Radio. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
We've been talking to Michele PW, who is considered one of the hottest marketing and copywriting strategists today. She has these 2 books that you'll want to pick up, Love-Based Copywriting Method and Love-Based Copywriting System. Whether you're working for an advertising agency, running your own business, or just need to write a better cover letter, you can learn great secrets from these books. She has good advice for you, Michele PW. The book again, Love-Based Copywriting and Love-Based Copywriting System. I've been your host today for Good Books Radio, Dr. W.F. Strong, signing off. Here's hoping that all your books are good reads.